I've been doing graphic design for 3 years, and there's one word that I think defines the future of design workflows. And I'm not talking about AI, that's kind of the obvious one, but no, it's actually procedural. And with procedural comes non destructive. So, non destructive means that the changes that you make to something aren't permanent, they don't permanently change whatever you're trying to affect. Procedural means that it's driven by parameters. So, you can control things and change things on the fly. Now, today I'm going to use Blender and Cavalry to illustrate my point here of why I think these procedural is the primary one and non destructive is the secondary one. Why I think procedural is the future of design workflows. So let's start with Cavalry, and I'm going to design 3 graphics here to illustrate my point. So I have a very basic uh, poster here. And this is meant to be pretty organic and show some movement. And one of the ways that we can show movement with Affinity built in is with some procedural tools, which it actually does have already. For example, we have a mesh warp. So this is pretty cool. I'm going to show you kind of how you can use this real quick. But I want this effect of like a wave, of this flow is like coming in like a wave, like this. And I'll keep it super simple, but there we go. Affinity does have some procedural tools, but it doesn't have very many procedural creation tools. So this is neat because if I didn't actually like how this turned out, I can come in here and I can actually change what I just did. So nothing is permanent, which is what I mean by non-destructive. But for the primary graphic here, I want to have some type of super minimal kind of waves going, and I could do it manually, which would, it would kind of stink. So I would probably do something like create a line here that's flowy, and then try and duplicate that line over and over. But that's kind of a bit of a pain, so I'd rather not do that. Instead, we can use motion graphics software for this graphic design piece, which is like kind of weird. Why would we use motion graphics? It's motion graphics. That's not the point. Well, check this out. Cavalry is a procedural motion graphics software, and so it's tailor built to create these types of designs or graphics. So yes, there's motion here, which is actually perfect for my poster because I want there to be motion and I want there to feel like there's movement. What better way to do that than to actually use something in motion, right? So by the way, this file I got from scenery.io. This is Cavalry's community page website where people share the stuff that they create. It's pretty neat. Coming back to this, I'll put the link in the description, by the way. I can use this as my primary graphic. In fact, that's exactly what I want to do. So what I can do is come up here to File, and then I can render the current frame. Now, back in Affinity, I'm just going to click my temporary square here and turn it into a picture frame. And I'm going to drag in the render that I just did. And here it is. Check it out. It fits pretty well in my design. I like how that looks overall, but you know what? I actually got too ahead of myself. I probably should have customized the color first. So I want this sandy color to be the background so it kind of blends in. So I'm going to come here and copy this color. Let's come into Cavalry, come into my composition settings, and paste that in. Now we can't really see the lines here, so let's go ahead and fix that. We can come here, and I'm going to take this color. I want a nice blue to make it look like it's waves, on the beach. Somewhere's right around the corner. Let's paste that in. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to re-render this frame. But the thing is, too, maybe I didn't like that frame. Maybe what I wanted is something a little closer to this. Let's do that instead. Or maybe there's not enough waves. Maybe I want more. Let's like add 10 more into 25. Look at that. That looks more like there's some ripples or something going on. It's procedural. It's driven by parameters. It's easy to change. So now I can come here and render the frame. I'm just going to drop this into Affinity, and look at the difference that that makes. That looks so much better. And I mean, it's just a simple adjustment that I was able to control procedurally. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't update in real time. Like, it would be cool to say, oh, maybe I do want a different frame, something more like that. That would be kind of cool, but as far as I know, there might not be a way to do it. Now that I think about it, I think we can just copy his SVG and maybe paste it. Oh my gosh. Dude, that's amazing. That's even better. So with Cavalry, because it's like a vector motion graphics program, it's even easier. So I was complicating it more than I needed to, but check that out. I didn't make this in Affinity. I made this in Cavalry, but I imported it, and it's amazing. That actually worked out really good. Now, moving on. That's just to show you Affinity does have some procedural tools, but sometimes you want to create your graphic outside on a different program, and it just makes sense because it's so much easier to create this type of thing in Cavalry than it is to create in Affinity. Affinity does have its strengths. So for example, this is a little branding banner I created for a practice branding project that I did. I created a whole company called Tiger Lily Clothing Co. just as a practice thing, and there actually is a Tiger Lily company, but it's no affiliation there. Anyways, I have this model standing in between these two metal tubes. So what I've done is I've made the logo look like it's made out of metal, when the fact is it's just a bunch of effects. So if I disable all of these, you can see it's just a flat color. But the nice thing is Affinity has some procedural tools. So if I turn all of this back on, something like that, it looks metallic and it looks pretty cool. And because it's procedural, I can customize something. So it's like, you know what, this shadow isn't strong enough. I need it to be even more separated from the background. I can increase that. I can maybe make it more opaque. You know, whatever it is I need to do, it's customizable. And that's why proceduralism is so nice. I can adjust things with some sliders instead of having to manually redo everything. It's pretty cool. And if I really wanted to, I could copy this metal effect onto this text over here. So if I do that, that's what it looks like. This is a lot smaller than my metal tube, so I'm just gonna come here and try customizing some stuff like that. This inner shadow is offset way too much. Let's turn that down a bit too. Turn that down. And we get a bit of a different effect. So I don't really like how that looks, so I'll just disable it. And again, this is non-destructive, so I'm not losing out on a bunch of work. I'm not having to rebuild all of this. But there we go. It looks great. It looks professional, and it's really easy to customize and to make adjustments and modifications to. Let's talk about Blender. So I have one more poster here. All right, just as an example. And for the primary graphic, I want something complex. I want something geometric with loads of shapes and shading, and I can't really do that in Affinity. So instead, I'll use Blender. So I've created here what is called a Menger sponge. It's a fractal with cubes within cubes within cubes. There's infinite cubes, and it goes on forever. So here's my camera. I can render this and then save this into my design. We'll just drop that in. Put it down there, move it to the bottom, and there we go. That looks pretty complex, if I do say so myself. Pretty cool. But look in here, you know what? It's almost too busy, which isn't much of a problem because, hey, it's procedural. So I'm just going to make a change in Blender, re-render it, and drop it in Affinity. So now look at that difference. It's much simpler, and it's a little easier to see what's going on while still being very busy and geometric like I wanted to. That's proceduralism. That's using Blender to create cool graphics, and that's using Cavalry to create cool graphics, and using some of Affinity's own tools to create some cool graphics. So that's why I say proceduralism is the future of workflow. And there's so many tools coming out now that are focusing on this procedural aspect. Blender is developing new tools. Cavalry is now free and it has a bunch of procedural things. Though it may sound a little weird using motion design programs for graphic design, I hope I've shown you at least a little bit why it does make sense. And honestly, combining the two, combining a procedural graphic with just your typical, designed elements can create some really nice looking stuff. And it makes it pretty customizable and adjustable without too much fuss. And the more proceduralism that we get, the better. And I do think that AI is going to help with the procedural tools. We'll see where that takes us. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Peace out.